Did I do everything I set out to do this month? No. Do I have a good excuse? Yes. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Gia. I am a 26-year-old lady who lives in my mom's basement, and today I wanted to talk about everything that I read in the month of February. I set out to read 14 books this month, plus the 2 that I did not finish in the month of January. That ended up not working out because I caught COVID Super Bowl weekend and I was sick. I'm actually still sick. I have been sick for like 2.5 weeks now. You might be able to still hear it in my voice, but I am tired of being sniffly and sneezy. Frankly, I am over it. I've had enough. However, I can confirm that getting COVID the second time is infinitely worse, so please go get vaccinated because holy shit, that sucks. I'm gonna go get a booster because I will not go through this a third time. Also, please, if you're sniffly and sneezy, stay home. Like a sniffle out of the ordinary. Just stay home. I really don't want anybody's germs anymore, okay? So just to briefly revisit what I had set out to read in February, I had to actually move one of them to March because the hold was going to be too long at the library. I actually just picked up the book the other day, so I wasn't even able to get my hands on the book without buying it. So I did have to move one of the books to March just because of timing. So that was not necessarily my fault. So that was down to 13 plus 2 from January. I had set out to read The Hawthorne Legacy, Foul Lady Fortune, Queen of the Tearling, Throne of Glass, Between Wrath and Mercy, The Fine Print, Terms and Conditions, and Final Offer, The Cruel Prince, The Atlas Six, Den of Vipers, and then from January, Last Sacrifice, and Poison Season. I have now actually read 7 of those, but one of them I finished on March 1st, so it is technically part of the March wrap-up. So I will mention it because I started it in February and read a lot of it in February, but I did finish it in March, so I'll talk about it at the end of next month. Of the 6 that I finished, 3 of them were part of the trilogy. It was The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Starting out with The Fine Print, I rated it... How much did I rate it? I don't even fucking remember. Starting out with The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, I rated this 4.5 stars. I really, really, really enjoy it. As a cod, a child of Disney myself, both of my parents met while working at Walt Disney World. It was very enchanting. It was a great time. I really loved the whole grumpy rich asshole meets the ray of sunshine dynamic that we got here with Rowan and Zara. They were very well matched. I think this one out of the 3 was probably the one I was most interested in as far as the subplots go, because I was extremely invested in a lot of the creative ideas that Zara was coming up with. Because if you are unfamiliar, this is a trilogy about 3 grandchildren of basically a fictional Walt Disney, and fictional Walt Disney dies, and he, in his will, tells his 3 grandsons that they will only receive their 18% of the company if they accomplish a certain set of tasks. And they all kind of have to work together in a way, and they're all kind of supporting each other, but they all have different things that they have to do. We start out with the middle brother, whose name is Rowan. He is known for being a very ruthless businessman. He's been on the board of directors for quite some time, but now he has to abandon that and go be the creative director, essentially, of the park. And he is tasked with trying to find where the park is lacking, because although they have been exceeding their financial numbers every quarter and they've been doing better each time, the grandfather wants Rowan to find where the park is lacking and then fix it. And this really taps into the whole part about Rowan being the artistic one, and he had to put those dreams aside to become a businessman because his dad is an asshole and told him that being an artist couldn't make him any money, or that it was a worthless pursuit. So the grandfather was trying to make Rowan tap into that potential as an artist and into his creative side to make the park better, use his skills to make the park better. And along the way, Rowan employs Zara, who is already an employee at the park. She works at the beautician salon, kind of like the Bibbidi Boppity Boo salon that they have, the boutique at Disney World, where they turn the kids into princesses. She is a beautician at that equivalent, and every quarter or so, the employees could submit creative ideas into fictional Walt Disney, and Zara has always had a dream of being on the fictional version of the Imagineers team, the kind of creators where they are in charge of making new things for the park. So this was always Zara's biggest dream, and before fictional Walt Disney died, aka Grandpa, she worked very closely with him, and so Rowan ends up employing Zara to be a part of this creative team as a part of the will, and they kind of meet each other that way. And I was incredibly invested in this, outside of being, about 10% pixie dust, and being like invested in the Walt Disney Company as a like a mechanism, like almost how it functions and the history of it. I've always been interested in like theme park operations. So that, and I'm a huge fan of like Defunct Land and a bunch of the other like YouTube channels that talk about the history of theme parks and tourism. So this was incredibly interesting to me, especially with the whole fact that we were getting a really good insight into Zara's creativity and how she, like, there was a one point where she explored the park as a guest to kind of figure out where they were lacking, because you could only understand so much from being outside of it. Like, you have to experience it as a guest to kind of understand where the gaps are. And I thought that that was a super great idea. I thought that their romance was fun and really emotional. Rowan has some severe daddy issues. I mean, all three of them do. All three of the brothers have some degree of like super bad daddy issues, but Rowan has not as bad as his eldest brother, but he has daddy issues and he has mommy issues because he misses his mom. And he, like, the mom as a focal point in the story was kind of like the heart of the family. And when she passed away very tragically is when their dad became a super asshole. So he kind of detaches himself from like the world of imagination, because his mom was really was all of that imagination. So I thought that it was a really emotional story. The only reason I docked half a star is because there were some power imbalance issues, and this becomes an issue with other installments in the story. I didn't like that there was a lack of forbiddenness, because, Rowan was Zara's boss. He was basically her boss's boss, and there was no point at which their relationship became hard. Lauren Asher even went so far as to say that there was no policy in which they couldn't date their coworkers. It was just like kind of frowned upon if you were in the same department, but there was no point as to when, Zara dating her boss's boss was ever a problem. And I think that in the real world, this would be a problem. I mean, I understand suspending your disbelief in that this is fake. This is not a real story. So, if you're looking for something that's easygoing and low stakes, then yeah, kind of subtracting that from the story eliminates the need for 100 extra pages for no reason. But it did present a power imbalance problem that I think needed to be brought up. So that would be the only reason why I docked half a star. Other than that, it was really good and it was perfect. Next was Last Sacrifice by Rochelle Mead. This was my ending to the Vampire Academy series, my revisiting of it. I haven't even recorded the video for Vampire Academy Part 2 just because I've been so sick. But I think Last Sacrifice was a really great ending to a 6-book series. That, and it was a really great ending to the second arc of the series. I talked a lot about how Shadow Kiss was a really good ending to the first arc of the series, and honestly, it could have ended there, especially with my amount of gripes that I had about Blood Promise and how Spiritbound was better than Blood Promise. But Last Sacrifice really ties it all together and really ends it in a good way. Like, it doesn't, it isn't a point where, the series goes on for a second arc and it's just worse altogether. Because the book series could have ended after book 3 and they could have like rounded it all up. But there were a lot of unanswered tangents and questions and more things to explore. So I do understand why 4, 5, and 6 were written. But 4 was a very bad start to the second arc of the series. So again, Last Sacrifice was a really, really good way to end it. There was a massive mystery and conspiracy at the root of it. So for, spoilers ahead. So at the end of Spiritbound, the queen is killed and Rose is framed for it. So we spend all of Last Sacrifice trying to figure out who actually killed the queen and why. And then also trying to figure out the queen's last message, where she said that Alyssa actually has a sibling. And in order to get her quorum back at the council, she has to find this sibling, and then she will be able to have a voice on the council again without getting married and having kids of her own, basically. So we spent Last Sacrifice trying to find Lissa's lost sibling and then also clear Rose of the charges against her. And Rose is really fucking stupid. So this was probably where I was at my peak like frustration with Rose, because she cannot sit still for any fucking reason, and she like hates it when other people are fighting for her and she just can't sit still. So when she was broken out of prison and was forced into hiding, she refused to stay in hiding because she was like, no, I have to help them clear my name. And it's like, no, the best thing you could do is stay put and let other people do it because you can't get caught. And she just refused to stay put. So I just found myself to be extremely frustrated with her throughout the whole story because she was being ridiculous. I honestly felt like she got more immature, even though she was like 18 years old finally in this book. What I found interesting on my revisiting of this book, though, is that I remembered the who and the whodunit. Like, I remembered who did it, but I couldn't remember all of the why and the how in between. So it kind of felt like it was new to me because I remembered like what happens at the end. I know how it ends. It's just I couldn't remember everything in between. So that was a really nice thing to re-experience. The main reason why I docked half a star, however, is because I have a really, really specific gripe about Last Sacrifice that I think could have been taken out completely. I will probably go deeper into this in the Vampire Academy Part 2 video. Actually, I said it in my notes, see the Vampire Academy Part 2 video that I haven't made yet. But my very, very specific gripe about Last Sacrifice is that there is a community that Rose and Dimitri come upon that Sydney takes them to called the Keepers, and they are a off-the-grid community in which Moroi, Dampiers, and humans all live in harmony. They are compared to, like, vampiric Amish people in that they live very off the grid. They're very distrusting of the modern ways of life. They just seem to adhere to the older ways of life where humans were still mixed into the community, which was something that was now seen as just something they didn't do. What I did not like about this is that first of all, just cut it out. It was just a pointless part of the story. But what I didn't like about it is the language that was used in referring to this community, in that Rose was calling them like archaic and the S word savage, saying that they were just not civilized. And these words send out blaring red alarms for me because as an anthropologist, these were words that were used in cultural ethnographies in times past in like the 19th century, which we kind of look upon as thank you for your contribution to the foundation of the field. However, we are now revisiting a lot of our old research. You have to unlearn and rewrite a lot of things that were written at the beginning of the field's foundation. So hearing those words, that sets off an alarm in my head, and it's like, whoa, like that's not acceptable to say about a community. So I really, really, really did not like this inclusion. I understand the point that it was trying to get across, but it was completely useless. This inclusion of this community did not really do much for the story. Except provide maybe a 3-chapter tangent that could have been cut out completely. Other than that, it really wraps up the series well and gives us our next protagonist for the Bloodline series, which is Sydney. Next is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. I really did not like this book as much as I wanted to like it. So it's a marriage of convenience between the eldest brother, Declan, and his assistant. Her name is Iris. Declan, out of all 3 brothers, has the most daddy issues in that he's like 36 years old and his biggest fear is that he's going to become like his dad. And spoiler alert, he acts like his dad a lot. I felt like the emotional baggage between the 2 leads became really overwhelming and off-centered. On the side of Declan being borderline emotionally abusive to Iris, I don't think that was well done or appropriate. I should note that the men in the Dreamland Billionaire series are all white men, but all of the women are women of color. Zara is Indian, Iris is black, and in the third book, Final Offer, Alana is Hispanic. It is of note that the power imbalances here in this series are a white partner versus a partner of color. And I just felt like Terms and Conditions really took this and ran with it in a bad way, because you have a 36-year-old white man married to a 23-year-old black woman, and he is just borderline emotionally abusive to her, like, all the time. I understood that maybe that there were demons that Declan needed to confront, and that the story was maybe trying to convey a very realistic portrayal that sometimes we do lash out at our loved ones and unintentionally hurt them before we realize what we've done, because not every person has the ability to proactively self-reflect. But it just felt like Iris was just being dragged through the mud repeatedly and in an unfair way, and I did not like it at all. That with the power imbalance, because Declan is the aspiring CEO and she is his assistant, there was the power imbalance there, and they kind of made it out like they had a secret relationship for like the past 2 or 3 years, and nobody really said anything about it. They're like, oh, you've been secretly dating your assistant? Cool. And this is the largest age gap out of all 3 couples. There's a 13-year age gap. I can't drag an age gap. For those who know me personally, I've been in age gap relationships, so I can't really drag it. But this just did not hit for me. It just felt really unfair, and Iris was underutilized as a black female protagonist, and she's just being dragged through Declan's emotional baggage. Like, go to fucking therapy. I just kept yelling at the book, like, Declan, go to therapy. She does not deserve your bullshit. I can understand how this can hit for somebody else, but it did not for me. I just wish that Iris was just better well treated. And I mean, they fall in love at the end and he treats her well later, but I just felt like through the course of the book, she was not treated well. And she deserved better than that, honestly. Next, I read The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I honestly would like to go back and not reread, but I do want to revisit the Inheritance games, because I ended up rating them both 4.5 stars. But I feel like The Hawthorne Legacy was just so much better than the Inheritance games. I read it in less than a day, like literally in an afternoon. I read it so fast. One of the reasons why I just blaze through these books is because Jennifer Lynn Barnes's writing style is that everything's in quick cuts. So her chapters are only like 3 to 5 pages long, or even shorter than that. So it feels like a TV show, in that every chapter is just a change of camera angle. So they read very, very quickly. That, and it's an extremely fast-paced, like Da Vinci Code-esque mystery in which there's multiple, like 100 little puzzle pieces that all fit together, and they're all baby clues. They're not just like these big, like monumental, like in a lot of mysteries or in a lot of fantasies, there will be like one riddle that you have to solve, or like one big mystery you have to solve, and you find all these little pieces. This is like a very multi-step puzzle. So everything feels like a new revelation, but you are always one step closer, but also feel like you're one step behind, because you don't know how close or far away you are from the answer to the puzzle. That's what I think is the most compelling about this, is because you don't know how close you are to the end of the line. I thought that this was a trilogy. A 4th book just came out, and honestly, I can't wait to read the other 2, because it feels like, every time you take one step, you feel like you're behind again, because another step was added to the puzzle. It's like every time you figure out something, the puzzle just grows in size. And you look back and you find a new clue in a puzzle piece that you thought that you already had figured out. So it was just, you're doubling back, and it's like a little conspiracy board. So I really, really, really enjoy how this is not only structured prose-wise and narratively, but I really, really enjoy how this is structured as a mystery goes, as extremely fast-paced. So I understand why this is so popular. The way that I described it is like more intense, like games and puzzles with secrets and lies that are tacked onto each other, like a Jenga tower, and it had me excited for the next thing that I was going to find out. I honestly didn't know where it was going. I didn't know who was the villain. What's going on? And then I was like, at some point, are Avery and the Hawthorns cousins? What's going on? Is this going to be getting weird? What's going on here? I have no idea what's going on. I'm just here for the experience. Literally, my only complaint about this book, the reason why I docked it half a star, is because I don't understand the teenage romance in it. Like, I know I'm a 26-year-old geriatric woman as far as like relating to the romance of this book series goes, but our protagonist is 17 and she's caught between these two brothers that I legitimately do not know the difference between them. They feel very similar to me, like extremely. One feels like, okay, I can usually pick out when something is fan fiction or a character is inspired by something. You know how when you read 50 Shades of Grey and once you found out it was a Twilight fan fiction, all the puzzle pieces started to come together? Okay, so Grayson is Draco Malfoy. And once I tell you that, you're not going to be able to unsee it. And by that, I mean Grayson is fanfiction Draco Malfoy. He's broody, he's blonde and gray-eyed, and he's rich, and he, you know, do you see it? Do you see it now? Because now you're not going to unsee it. And you just have Grayson, who is gray. He is gray in that he is broody but protective. And then you have Jameson, who kind of feeds into Avery's more adventurous side, and he is a little less broody, maybe. So like, you don't really have a solid difference between the two of them. So I feel like Avery doesn't really know, like, I know that she's canonically 17, but I don't understand her emotions in that what makes her feelings about the two boys different. How does she feel towards one that she doesn't feel towards the other? And how does that make them adversaries romantically? How does it make it so there's just such a push and pull between the two of them to make this a real love triangle? Because I legitimately cannot tell the difference between the two of them when it comes to her attraction to the both of them. It really just feels like she wants to have her cake and eat it too. I feel like she has more of an attraction and chemistry with Jameson, but the way that Grayson just keeps popping up, it almost is like we are supposed to believe she's going to end up with Grayson, because I don't see any reason why he should still be there if he's not going to be the one she ends up with in the end, and everything that we're seeing and experiencing with her attraction to Jameson is just another part of the game, or it's another red herring. So I really can't tell where this is going, which is good. I can't predict where it's going. It's not a predictable love story, and the love story is as much of a mystery as the mystery of the whole series itself. However, I wish I had a more clear understanding of what makes her attraction to the both of them different and opposing, but compelling at the same time. Does that make sense? Am I crazy? Then the last book that I actually finished in February was The Final Offer by Lauren Asher. This one I rated 5 stars. It was easily my favorite out of the entire series. I think that it was super, super compelling as a childhood friends to lovers to exes to second chance romance. Very, very deep, very, very emotional. I teared up a little bit at a couple points, to be honest. And I'm not generally a crier. Like, there are a few books that have made me cry. I'm more of a crier when it comes to TV shows and movies, but books don't make me cry. Maybe if I was listening to it, it would make me cry a little bit more, but there's very few books that have done that for me. And I can't even remember at what point that it was that it made me tear up a little. But this has to be a new favorite romance subgenre of mine where, you know, childhood friends to lovers to exes to second chance romance. So fucking good, because they like already know each other. It's not there's no getting to know you part. It's like being reintroduced to you, and I thought that that was so well done here because they're catching up on lost time. Final Offer chronicles the middle daughter. I may have been wrong in the beginning. I think Rowan is the youngest. Rowan's the youngest and Cal's the middle one. I forgot. Cal is the middle brother, and he is the family disappointment, to kind of put it succinctly. He is an addict. He struggles with alcohol addiction. He used to struggle with opiate addiction and has since cut that out of his life, but he still struggles with alcohol. It's also something that their father struggles with. He has been to therapy and rehab before, which kind of gave him a bit more of emotional maturity than we saw in the other two brothers, because he is very self-aware as to what his problems are. He knows that this is a problem. He knows that he uses alcohol as a crutch, and he was very self-reflective of his actions and how they made other people feel. So it was very clear that Cal was written with intention as a man who has gone to therapy, which very refreshing as somebody who usually reads the perspective of men who need to go to therapy. So I really, really enjoyed Cal as a character. I felt so sorry for him as to everything that he went through. And I think that addiction was written quite well here. I think it was written with care and with grace, and I really have to say that Lauren did a really, really good job at this. I said that Cal is everything that I want in a love interest: emotionally intelligent, a little damaged but aware of his faults, and very open about his feelings, because he is. He's extremely open about his feelings throughout the entire story, because the plot of The Final Offer is that Cal has to go to the summer house on the lake where he spent a lot of his younger and teenage years with his grandfather, and he needs to live there for one last summer before he sells the house and moves on. Problem is, but the house was left to somebody outside of the family, and her daughter is Cal's ex-girlfriend from their teenage to early college years, and they kind of grew up together. They knew each other from kids, and then they dated when they were much older. And Cal broke Alana's heart and left, and it's been 6 years since then. So it's been a while since they've seen each other. And in the very beginning of the story, we find out that Alana has a daughter. We also find out that it is her sister's daughter, so she's really her aunt. And at first, we're led to believe that this is Cal's daughter because of the age difference, but it's actually not. So we have a child character that is involved in this story, and she was done with such care, and she was treated so well. She was treated as a package with her mother, which in some stories, like, the kids are just kind of there. But I thought that the little girl, her name was Camilla, she was very well integrated into the story, and it was like the relationship was between three people. It was the relationship between Cal and Alana, and then Alana and Camilla, and then Camilla and Cal, that they all had this loving relationship between all three of them. And Cal deciding to go to rehab was for himself, but also so that he could choose to be a better person for Alana and Cammy, because he wanted to be a better person for them, but not for them, you know, like he was doing it for himself, but because he wanted to, you know, finally be a person who is deserving of their love, the both of them. So I thought that this was extremely well done. I really, really enjoyed this. It's easily the best one out of the series, in my opinion, and I would highly, highly recommend it. The book that I've spent a lot of February reading, but I finished technically in March, was Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. I'll just say immediately that I love it. It was excellent. It was a 4.75 star for me. I only docked a quarter of a star because some of the twists I could guess. Like, there were 3 main twists, and 2 of them I expected, but the book was not categorized as a mystery, so I really can't. I mean, it could, like, be a part of, like, maybe the mystery subgenre a little, but it wasn't classified as a mystery, so I can't really say, like, oh, like, I expected the twist, like, it's a bad mystery. Like, it's not marketed as a mystery. It's marketed as a historical fantasy, and it does historical fantasy exceptionally well. So 4.75 stars for Foul Lady Fortune. I'll talk about it more later. This is already getting really long because I haven't talked on camera in a while. By that, I haven't even done any, like, I haven't even recorded anything for a reading vlog in like 2.5 weeks. You could still hear in my voice that I'm like kind of sick. So I haven't been on camera in a while. So this is going to be a lot. So going into March, there's going to be a lot of lost ground to cover because I got COVID. So it's going to be great. So we're going to finish out the February TBR, which was Queen of the Tierling, Throne of Glass, Between Wrath and Mercy, The Cruel Prince, The Atlas Six, Den of Vipers, and I still have not finished Poison Season. I have read a chapter of Poison Season. I am so bad. This got renewed at the library, so it's due next week. So I need to actually get that read. But I am about, I think, 45% through the Atlas 6 right now, and I am really, really, really enjoying it. I just picked up Kingdom of the Wicked at the library. This was the book I had to move off of the February TBR because I couldn't get my hands on it forever, but I was able to get my hands on it at the end of February, so it's going to go into March. I am hoping that March will be a little bit of an easy month for me because I already have a good number of these, either like physically in my hands, I own them, or I have them already loaned out on audio from the library, and I have been going through my audiobooks really, really quickly. So in the future, I'm probably going to be doing a lot more audio books just because I think that it really allows me to read more throughout the month. But I have Kingdom of the Wicked over there. I own Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, but I think I'm going to listen to it on audio via my friend's Audible account. Next is Blade Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. This is the sequel to Realm Breaker. I have not picked it up at the library yet because it is a big book, and I am already afraid to finish Name of the Wind. So we're going to finish one big book before we pick up the second one. Then A Court of Frost and Starlight. I actually have this on loan from the library already as an audiobook. It's going to take me literally an afternoon to read it, so I am excited for that. Bone Weaver by Aidan Polydoros. This is a fall 2022 pick. It is not available at the library the last time I saw, so I'll probably get it on Audible, or I will request the library buy it. The Wicked King, which I need to revisit The Cruel Prince first. I was going to do a revisiting YA on The Cruel Prince and then actually read The Wicked King. I've never read it before. Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I'll get that from the library. The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I have that on ebook from the library. And then there is a new book coming out by her at the end of March called The London Seance Society that I will probably get from the library. And then Kingdom of the Wicked. So it's going to be I am hoping, easy month-ish. And I finally got my my audio hold on The Luminaries by Susan Dennard, so we will finally read that. So to average out the entire month, I read 3 books that were 4.5 stars, 1 that was 3.5 stars, 1 5-star, and if I basically include Foul Lady Fortune as a part of February, 1 4.75 stars, which brings us to an average of 3.95 stars, rounded up to 4 stars. Not a lot of reading got done, but the books that I did read were of quality. We had a quality, not quantity month. Anyways, that is all from me. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for hanging out with me. We will do more going forward because I am back in business, in that I am hoping that my immune system gets with the program and does not make me sick again for a while. If you'd like to find me anywhere else, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram. I have not been streaming 2 times a week lately because I have been out of commission, but hopefully we will get back to doing that. Remember to drink water and be nice to each other and exude kindness and empathy with everything that you do, and I will see you all in the next video.